let's get into the Raiders versus the Colts. Mike, you have the floor. Tell me how you're feeling about this loss. It was a must-win game, and the Raiders dropped it. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I'm not feeling good. Um, I watched this game last night because I was not at home on Sunday, but I was definitely keeping close tabs on the game while it was being played live. Um, yeah, there were some pretty big issues in this game that I'll get into. I'll kind of go. I mean, I have notes for the game, based off of everything I watched last night. Um, but at the end of the day, like you said, must win game, and we both came in thinking they were going to win this game because the Raiders defense was hot. Um, but I can't help but think before I get into the notes, Shane Steichen's a good coach, and I I have to preface with every time that the Raiders lose, it feels like, oh, this is an indictment on Antonio Pierce. He's suddenly not going to be the coach. You know what I mean? But then when they do win, it's like, no, he's definitely the guy. You know?
I know exactly what you mean.
Okay. Sorry, I thought I was lagging. I was like, oh no. All right, but I have to preface with, like, just because the Raiders lost doesn't mean that the Raiders lost this game. You know, or I should say, it doesn't mean that their opponent wasn't good and shouldn't have won that game. I guess that's the way I should put that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's fair to say that Antonio Pierce was definitely outcoached in this game. That I can definitely say, and that's not a good thing to say, right? But I'm honestly, I think Shane Steichen's impressive as fuck. Um,
Yeah.
he's had to deal with some injuries on his team, and yet there they are. They win a game that they needed to win. I think they were in almost the same situation as the Raiders. They have to win this upcoming week, potentially win their division. So, um, I would say kudos to the Colts. They had a hell of a game. Uh, so I'm just gonna go through the first quarter and on, and hopefully get through it pretty quick. But first quarter, opening drive, Colts started with the ball. There was a broken coverage play where there seemed to be I wouldn't call it a miscommunication between Nate Hobbs and Jack Jones. It actually kind of looked like Jack Jones needed to back off of the receiver in the flat and go back out with the receiver that was cutting back deep. But at the same time, Marcus Epps should have been on that receiver that was going deep. So I think it's statistically on Jones, but I kind of feel like it was on Epps for giving up this big 50-yard play on the opening drive. But regardless, broken coverage. And my thing on that is, all season, the Raiders have been really good on defense as far as limiting broken coverage and giving up, the 60-yard run. Whereas in this game, they weren't quite as good in that regard. And that was a big difference in this game. Um, Colts go down, they get a Jonathan Taylor touchdown. Um, the Raiders had, up until this game, given up only 19 points on opening drives the entire season, which was fifth best in the NFL. And then they give up 7 in this game, which 7 added on to 19 is quite a bit. So that's, I would say, saying a lot for the how this beginning of this game went. Um, After the past couple weeks with Aiden O'Connell between the Vikings game and I would say the Chiefs game, the passing game has suffered, right? But in this game, it was clearly a focus, and especially getting the ball to Devontae Adams. I'll read his stats off later. It's pretty crazy. Um, but the offense, which this is a thing I'd said a lot this season, they had a good opening script. Um, and then, in certain ways, it might have stalled as the game went on. But they were able to score at other times. So their offense was better than previous weeks, besides the Charger game, you know. But on the opening drive, they had this play where Cole Fotheringham was at tight end because we literally only had Hooper and Fotheringham at tight end this week. And Fotheringham, who was like, I think a second-year player, if not a rookie. By the way, he was undrafted. Cuts across the line at, hike. He motions across, and he's supposed to block the edge defender. The tackle does not block him, and he just whiffs, and it goes into a sack and stalls the drive. So the Raiders have to settle for a field goal. It's 7-3 to start the game. On the second drive for the Colts, Crosby got a huge pressure, and Adam Butler finished it off with a sack. They punt. But as the game went on, it was like pre-snap penalties were just killing the Raiders. There was a deep shot that Aiden O'Connell threw to Devontae Adams, and he missed him. It was incomplete, but it also it looked like an accurate pass. What it really looked like was that the referees missed pass interference. I don't understand how that wasn't PI. The corner was draping over Devontae and touching on him, and caused him to fall over before the ball even got there. It was and nobody touched the ball. So I don't know. There were some weird play calls in this game. There was a 3rd and 1 on the next drive or that drive where Jacoby Myers got a jet sweep and runs to the right and then turns around and throws the ball back to Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell gets the ball. He looks downfield deep. Again, this is on 3rd and 1. The Colts defenders cover the shit out of this. So he looks back at Jacoby Myers, throws it to him. His lead blocker is Zamir White, and he doesn't even catch the ball because the Colts are right there to deflect it. Then on 4th and 1, just weird play call. On 4th and 1, they had Jermaine Illuminor lined up on the left side next to Thayer Mumford at left tackle. So I'm assuming Illuminor was eligible, or they put him at left tackle and slid everybody over. And it was weird. I was like, what did you just do? Did they slide? I really was confused. I don't know if Parham was the center on the play. I really don't. I should have looked more, but Illuminor gets a false start penalty, 4th and 1. They were going to go for it. False start, got a punt, right? Again, pre-snap penalties. In the second quarter, the offense finally started to actually develop the run, and Zamir White looks fucking nice. More specifically, in the passing game. They had a good little game plan going with him as far as Aiden O'Connell would get the ball, look downfield, and if there's, quickly, Zamir White's wide open, he'd get the ball, and he would make a little move, and he'd get 5 to 10 yards every single time. It was he looks good. He looked good, okay? So that was a positive. There was another 3rd and 1 deep shot attempt. And then on 4th down, 4th and 1, delay a game. Penalty. Pre-snap. And that was on the Colts 40-yard line. So that's a missed opportunity, right? Obviously, they punt. Later, DeForest Buckner gets a sack off of Greg Van Roten. It looked to me like a coverage sack. There was a lot of time spent in the pocket. And then this ends up forcing the Raiders to punt on this final drive of this first half with 1 minute left. And the key thing to take away here is the Raiders still had 3 timeouts. And I just got done mentioning that, there was a delay of game penalty on 4th and 1 on the Colts 40. And by the way, we lost by 3 points. This has been my biggest issue with Antonio Pierce is his clock management, right? And then in this game, I don't know if it's his call or Bo Hart agrees, but going for it and not going for it on 4th downs, I'm just like, what are we doing, right? I don't know. So there were definitely issues to be had with the coaching staff in this game. Another positive, AJ Cole, every time that he punted, at least in the first half, which I think was 4 times, he pinned the Colts within the 10-yard line. And we'll get back to AJ Cole later in this podcast, but I will live on this until he proves me otherwise. I think he's the best punter in football. So now in the third quarter, the Raiders are down 3-14, and on 3rd and 1, again 3rd and 1, I keep saying that, Zamir White gets the handoff and he's tackled for a loss. Right, so they punt, right? Or they're going to punt, sorry, but a roughing the punter penalty saves the drive, and they end up actually going down and scoring a touchdown to Devontae Adams. So okay, cool. So now it's 14-10.
AJ Cole took one for the team.
Yeah, he did. It was actually kind of funny. Like in the replay, he's kind of just waiting for the call. Like, yeah, he hit me. Yeah, but actually, I think the announcer even mentioned like it almost seemed like AJ Cole kind of waited a second just to let the guy hit him. So maybe he did take it for the team. Maybe he was like, you know what, I got to take this one. We got to score.
You would think punters would do that more, right?
Yeah, you would think. But
you can get seriously hurt, like career-ending hurt.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want your punter to be tearing his ACL on his kicking leg. That would be horrible.
No, but it would most likely be the plant leg. You know what I mean? Rather than the kicking leg, because like you have to imagine like you need one leg down in order to punt. But like still, the punter would be missing like an extended period of time, and you definitely don't need that when there's like a surplus of punters in the NFL. Like punters last forever.
Yeah. And then also as far as like holding the ball a little extra long to get them to hit you, I think part of that penalty is it has to happen while he's kicking. So if you hold it too long and you don't kick, you're just getting tackled. Then you just look like a dumbass. But
come on. Yeah. Oh my god. And then you get like
wait, no.
Tackled for loss or get it blocked. God forbid you get it blocked because you're holding on to it for too long.
Right. Like, oh fuck, he didn't hit me.
Yeah.
But
that's a way to get chewed. That's a way to get fired overnight.
Yeah. So Colts obviously get the ball and they convert a 4th and 1 pass to Michael Pittman, who had a pretty good game. If you watch the play though, I don't know how Marcus Epps didn't deflect this ball. Like it was in the placement was like, I don't know why Minshew threw it, and I don't know how it worked. And of course it did. It went for like a pretty solid gain on 4th and 1. Raiders give it up, right? Very soon after that, Max Crosby forces a fumble on Jonathan Taylor, but Michael Pittman is right in the right spot, right time, jumps and falls right on the ball. Could have been the big turnover that the Raiders needed in this game, but they don't get it. Colts get a field goal. It's 17-10. 4th quarter, 3rd down. Aiden O'Connell throws a pick 6, but it's called back because of PI on that corner or defensive holding, whatever it was. So on 3rd and 4, Raiders have a second chance. Incomplete pass. And then the Raiders punt on the Colts 45-yard line. So not only, like not going for it, but these are the situations I've mentioned, like being on the Colts 40-yard line, on their 45-yard line. It's like, that's where you go for it. That's where you got to put your balls on the table. You literally have to win this game. You literally have to. So there comes a point where it's like, where's the urgency, right? Because in my opinion, the urgency came way too late in this game. Colts get the ball, and literally they only run the ball. They only hand off the ball to Jonathan Taylor and, get this, Trey Sermon. And
Trey Sermon was pretty good a couple weeks ago.
And he was good this week. He almost had a fumble in this game, but he was barely down on the elbow before the ball came out. But He had a big run on this drive, and so did Jonathan Taylor. Like they might have both got plus 20+ yard runs in this drive. It was like a 7 or 8 play drive. Again, only ran the ball. They settle for a field goal. It's 10-20 Colts. Raiders offense follows it up with a nice drive, but they have to settle for a field goal. 13-20 Colts. 4.5 minutes to go in the game. Season on the line. Colts get the ball. 3rd and 8. Offsides penalty by Janarius Jenkins. And on the same play, because the offsides penalty is called, there's a flag in the air. Minshew sees it. All right, chucking it to Michael Pittman. Jack Jones gets called for PI. So we get a double whammy on 3rd and 8. Right? And this was on the Colts side of the field. Like, this is like the 30-yard line. I disagree with the Jack Jones pass interference call. I think it was an uncatchable pass. The ball was going out of bounds. And Pittman
Hold
was
on real
like,
quick.
yeah.
You said Janoris Jenkins? Or
Janarius.
Janarius. Okay, I was like, is
Yeah,
Janoris
no, not
Jenkins
the
still
corner.
playing?
Yeah, no. This is the defensive end number 97, the guy that
Okay.
came off the practice squad a couple weeks ago against I think the first Chiefs game. He got a sack, maybe.
I was like, wow, he's still playing?
Yeah, no. Janarius Robinson. Did I say Jenkins?
Yeah, you said Jenkins.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
My bad. That's who I was thinking of, I guess. But
Yeah.
no, Janarius Robinson. Jeez.
Okay.
Number 97.
I was like, man, why would like, they have such similar names. You know, Janarius and Janoris.
Yeah.
It's like, are they brothers?
Yeah. I'm reading my notes, and I think I read the first name, and I just probably whiffed and guessed on the last name there. But and also because he's a player I barely gotten to see, and I don't really know on a name basis. I just know him by 97.
Yeah.
But
No.
but I
Go
give
ahead.
his name.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. But again, the pass looked like it was uncatchable, and yet PI was called. And again, earlier in this game, Devontae Adams was. I thought it should have been called PI, and I'd say the catch was passable, but maybe they determined that pass was uncatchable, and yet this one, what are we doing? I think I'm gonna ream the referees when I'm done talking about this game, because there's a serious fucking issue in this league right now with the referees. And season's on the line. We can't be okay, I'm just gonna ream them now. We can't be having the referees ruining games in week fucking 17. That's just ridiculous. And like, I'm not gonna make the excuse of the referees lost this game for the Raiders, although you could fucking argue it. You absolutely could. But they can't be fucking up this late in the season.
Yeah, like with the Lions game a couple nights ago. Okay, but real quick, the referees have been messing up games late in seasons for several, like probably decades now. Like it's just been like one of the plays that like really stands out to me was the Saints got robbed out of a Super Bowl appearance against like when they were playing against the Rams on that clear it was defensive pass interference, clear as day. It was right in front of the official and they didn't call it. Like they have been doing, like, it's just one of those things where it's like you can count on death, taxes, and the officials dictating NFL games late in the season.
Yeah, I don't know. The referees, the NFL's got to figure it out with the referees. They can't keep allowing this to happen. If they're gonna have New York on the other end of things, oh, the referees are going to New York. It's like, well, when they call the wrong thing, maybe we should be allowed to go to New York too. I don't know. It's just I get the human element of it, just like in baseball with the strike zone and stuff, but it's like, dude, when it's obvious to the naked eye, that's just going to piss me off.
Do they go to New York in the NFL, or is that just MLB? Because
No, for confirming, like, oh, is his knee down? We're gonna go to New York or whatever.
okay, so that's for the NFL. I know there's a sport where they go to Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's probably baseball. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah, forgive me for derailing it.
No, you're good. It's just I don't know. I'm gonna get into something which every Raider fan is probably already thinking of what really fucked this game over, and it was on the referee. But as I've already mentioned, the Raiders, between coaching and pre-snap penalties, it's on them. And I think the Colts game planned and had a hell of a game, but the referees play a part in this too, and that's upsetting. When the season's on the line. The same, Chiefs. Some Chiefs fans might think that they have a thing to say about Kadarius Toney. I think that shit's ridiculous, but when I say what happened, you'll realize, oh, it's kind of the same thing, and it's like, so. Let's see. Last thing I mentioned. Okay, 3rd and 8, blown up. It was 3rd and 8. We get the 2 penalties. They get a first down. Whatever. Right? They're moving down the field now. Again, this is now less than 4.5 minutes to go. They're up a touchdown. Later in the drive, Michael Pittman gets a pass and he's forced out of bounds. So it's 3rd down. Clock is stopped, or at least it should be. Max Crosby shows up, makes the play of the game on defense, tackle for loss with 3:19 left, just when the Raiders needed it. The Colts go out to attempt a 50-yard field goal. The kick is up, and it's no good.
And Jack Jones was offsides, but he was not offsides.
Yes, indeed. Okay, you saw this.
I did.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the All-22 video of this offsides penalty does not give us a clear-cut, straight line view of this. We get a little bit of, like this angle, Now, here's what happens. When Kadarius Toney is offsides on offense, he points at the referee, but he doesn't look at him. He just points, and they call hike like a fucking idiot, and he gets called offsides correctly. Jack Jones points at the referee like receivers do, and he's not a receiver, he's a corner, but he points at the referee, he looks at him. The referee doesn't say shit. Okay, cool. As the ball is hiked, it starts moving. Jack Jones moves his arm to get, like, momentum. The only thing I can think is maybe his helmet is offsides. But it's not that his body went offsides at the snap. The moment the ball moves, he moves. That's legal. So if it's his head, the referee needs to tell him, hey, just a little, dude, just a little. Because I can't fault Jack Jones for trying to win the game or prevent the Colts from winning the game. I can't even fault him, So I don't know. It's just, obviously it's upsetting. Obviously they get the penalty, 5 yards, 45-yard field goal. They make it. It's good. The Colts are now up 2 possessions with, I think, 1.5 minutes to go. Let me see here. Sorry. Oh, 3 minutes to go. 3 minutes to go. And then the Raiders get the ball. They drive down the field, and they score a touchdown on 4th down. 4th and goal. 4th and 1 to Devontae Adams with, let's see. I don't know how many. I think like 1 minute left in the game. It's like, way earlier they could have kicked a field goal, and maybe they get the ball back on an onside. But regardless, they need an onside. It's unrealistic. Yada yada. They go for the onside. They don't get it. Game's over. And the season is now essentially over. They're eliminated from the playoffs. And it's just that, like, the 50-yard penalty or the 50-yard field goal attempt going no good. And getting that penalty, it's like that's what everybody's hanging on to. But I mean, the 3rd and 8 offsides penalty was genuinely offsides. The PI I still disagree with, but regardless, it gave the Colts another chance when they should have ended it right there on 3rd and 8 on the Colts 30. They punt the ball. The Raiders get the ball on, like, say, their own 30, and they can go tie the game. But, again, mishaps, all the missed opportunities on 3rd and 1, 4th and short, near the 45, 40-yard line of the Colts. I'm not blaming the refs on this one. The Raiders lost this game, and it admittedly put a little bit of it might not even be little, it put a dent in my view on Antonio Pierce as the long-term option for the Raiders. I still think he's a good one, and I still think he might still be my top choice, but it's not because of him. He's clearly a rookie head coach in this league. He is not the best at, as I said, time management, right? But the way that he has built this culture and everything I mentioned last week, he's done a really good job with this team. But specifically for me, what makes me want Antonio Pierce is Patrick Graham, and I've said that at least ever since Josh McDaniels was let go, and it's only gotten a strong. My feeling for Patrick Graham has only gotten stronger as the season's gone on because of 63-21 beating the Chiefs, right? Letting go of Patrick Graham would be an insurmountable mistake, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And if you asked me, I mean, I kind of already spoiled it, but if you asked me, who would you rather keep, Antonio Pierce or Patrick Graham? Not a question for me. Patrick Graham. If we can go and get a head coach who is willing to keep Patrick Graham, and I would argue Champ Kelly should be kept too, I'm all for it. But the problem is, you let Antonio Pierce go, suddenly your players are upset. Just today, Devontae Adams had a press conference, and he was saying, "Oh, Antonio Pierce has my vote. He has all the locker room's vote. He's proven he should be the guy, and he has shown that he is exactly what a Raider is and should be. He lives that, he breathes that. It's like it's going to be Bazakia all over again. The team's going to get upset about it, and actually, I sent you a tweet, which is hilarious, and I'd love you to pull it up. This one Raider fan posed this question of, well, here's the ideal coaching. Here's the ideal coaches for the Raiders next season, from head coach to offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and so forth. Let me know if you can find it.
Hold on. Oh, okay. I did see this earlier, and I actually replied to you, but I hit the wrong button, and so like I missed the send button, and so it clicked off of it, and I was like, I'm not retyping what I said. So I'm gonna pull it up, and then I do see that there's a comment. We'll get to it in a second. I do appreciate you for checking out the channel. But all right, so Leandro Raiders says, "Okay, Raider Nation, I have a plan for 2024. Head coach Jim Harbaugh, assistant head coach Antonio Pierce, offensive coordinator John Gruden, defensive coordinator Patrick Graham, special teams Rich Bisaccia. What do you think?" You know what I was going to tell you, Mike? If you hire Harbaugh, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Like, in theory, this is probably
wait.
like
Clarify.
If Harbaugh comes in, he's going to want his own. He's going to want his guys in there. Right. I don't think he's going to want like a platoon of former Raider head coaches.
Right.
I think Harbaugh's going to want to like change everything in the Raiders. I think that's he's got great connections to absolutely great coaches. Like, why wouldn't he want to like be in control of everything? That's right. Just kind of like Jim Harbaugh's thing.
Yeah. The funny thing about this tweet to me, this is a horrible plan. This is okay. On paper, this is the best coaching staff I've ever seen for a Raiders team. Mm-hmm. In reality, this coaching staff would destroy the Raiders franchise. Absolutely, or at least the locker room. How so? Yeah. Because, Jim Harbaugh would come in, and I'm the head coach. I have the ego, right? But then you also have John Gruden, who has a fucking insane ego. And just him, this tweet has to be a joke. I'm sorry. Jim Harbaugh and John Gruden are not fucking working together. Okay, but then you also have the current team who is loyal as fuck to Antonio Pierce, and he's supposed to be the assistant head coach. So once there's an issue with Jim Harbaugh, once they start losing games, it's going to be, well, we want Antonio Pierce again. But then you also have Rich Bisaccia as your special teams coach. What are we talking about? You talked about the list that is supposed to come out today. With our luck, okay, I've seen a lot of talk about Jim Harbaugh, and we'll talk a lot more about him because I'm getting warmer to the thought of him, but I still hate the idea of losing Patrick Graham, and I really hate that idea, but I also really hate the idea of getting another head coach to come in with totalitarian rule on the roster. I don't want that. I want a general manager to do his job. I want the coordinators to do their jobs and the coach to coach, right? And he's a great coach, and he's been very well proven, but he's also been known to leave the places that he coached with bad taste, right? Whether it's the Niners of the past or what's going on right now with Michigan. Obviously, he's about to potentially win a championship, but all these suspensions and everything, I don't know. But
what happened with the Niners is that I guess Jim Harbaugh agreed to come to the Niners. This is what I heard. He agreed to come to the Niners with Trent Baalke as his GM, and so he agreed to those terms. And then later on, he was like, you know what? I actually want to pick my own GM. And he had already signed the contract and whatnot, so he was kind of stuck with Trent Baalke, right? Then Harbaugh and Baalke did not get along because I don't think Jim Harbaugh didn't really seem to respect Trent Baalke or Jed York, and I think Harbaugh just wanted it his way, and he wanted Jed York to stay out of his way. And so I think at the time they mutually agreed to part ways, and it was a mistake by the 49ers. But I do think that by the end of Harbaugh's tenure, there was so much drama between the front office and Harbaugh that he lost the locker room. And I think Jimmy Ward kind of talked about it, like he had never experienced something like that in an NFL locker room. But obviously that was like his first. I guess in retrospect, it was weird for him at the time. As an experience, he was a young player, under Harbaugh. But in terms of Harbaugh being at Michigan, like he's been fine. And then Harbaugh was great at Stanford. Look, he coached up Andrew Luck, and Andrew Luck, was successful in the NFL until injuries, caught up to him, and he just decided to retire. So
yeah, go ahead.
Harbaugh has taken Michigan from an irrelevant college football team to in the championship now 2 years in a row, and in the top 4 3 years in a row now. They have been relevant ever since Harbaugh's been there. And yeah, a lot is different in college football in terms of recruiting and all that stuff, but I mean, he just knows football and he's so connected, and he's a big culture guy. And I know Antonio Pierce has set a great culture, for the Raiders. But, do you remember when I said it was kind of a slippery slope on how much power that the players had because of the Antonio Pierce essentially opened the floodgates. This is a player-led team. Now, if you get rid of Antonio Pierce, whoever else you bring in, it's going to be the stepfather treatment. That's not my dad. That's not my coach, right? I wanted Antonio. Why doesn't Mark Davis listen to us? Are they fully going to buy in? And I know it's childish to compare it to a father figure, but it's like a person of power, right? So I'm not saying that whoever comes in as coach is going to make them their sons. No, that's ridiculous. But if they're all publicly coming out saying that they want Antonio Pierce, that's who they want as head coach. So they're not really giving Mark Davis much of a choice because they're gonna. I mean, are they gonna mentally check out if they don't like the next coaching candidate? Like, let's just say they bring in Harbaugh and they don't like Harbaugh. Like, you know, it's it's kind of a lose-lose situation. Let's say they keep Antonio Pierce, and then Antonio Pierce shows um, the same mistakes and doesn't improve upon like the clock management, game time decisions that we've been talking about over the past couple weeks. Then it's a bad decision. The Raiders have kind of put themselves in this situation again. So I don't know what you think about everything that I just said there, but you know.
Yeah, I think, well, the coaching situation is like, other than the quarterback situation, is probably the number one thing. They're really tied for me right now, like just the most interesting things about this organization and what's going to happen this offseason. And the coaching change, or keeping Pierce, will be announced by the end of January. At least it should be. So unless they decide, oh, we want to go for a coach from the Niners or Ravens or somebody in the Super Bowl, uh, but if it's Harbaugh, it shouldn't take that fucking long. So, um,
I don't see it. All right. There's certain things that I can visualize, and I could absolutely visualize Harbaugh in a Raider, in Raider attire. I'm having a real tough time. Like, all right, it would make sense for Harbaugh to go to Los Angeles for the Chargers. It makes sense because they've got the quarterback, they've got all these like talented players. It kind of resembles the way that the Niners were built before Harbaugh came to the Niners. Like, I get that. But man, I just can't. I don't know why. Like, typically I can see things like, before they happen. Like, I have to be like, yeah, I could see that. I could see that. It's so hard for me to see Harbaugh wearing powder blue and like being successful on the Chargers. I don't know why. Like, they should almost be a match made in heaven, but there's something in my gut that's like, I don't know why. I absolutely think it would work on the Raiders. I'm not sure on the Chargers. I don't know. And the Chargers are talented. So are the Raiders, but it's
um,
it's a gut thing with me.
right. I can see Harbaugh on the Chargers, and honestly, a big reason why, at least potentially, a big reason why I'm warming up to the idea of Harbaugh is because I don't want to see him coaching the Chargers with Herbert. Because if he can go and make Alex Smith look like a Pro Bowler, uh, I can only imagine what he could do with Herbert.
Yeah, God forbid you turn a division that had Mahomes and Herbert to potentially having Herbert play to the level of Patrick Mahomes.
Well, it's like, okay, you have Andy Reid and Mahomes, you have Sean Payton, and as of right now, we don't know who, and then you have Harbaugh and Herbert, and then you have this defensive rookie head coach with absolutely fucking nobody right now on the rate. It's like we are fucked if that's really what happens. And regardless, I mean, just having Mahomes and Herbert in this division and then getting Sean Payton, it was like, I'm just gonna sing lullabies to myself every night before I go to bed to keep my patience. But okay, just to get back on this though, first off, if the Raiders hire Jim Harbaugh, the next day the Epstein files will come out and he'll be on the fucking list at this fucking rate. Secondly, or if the Raiders decide, like the rumors for some stupid reason are suddenly going, they go back to John Gruden. John Gruden will be on the Epstein files for sure. So, but your point of like the locker room potentially like almost being okay, when like there was a report that said after the Raiders beat like the Jets or Giants, they're smoking the cigars and everything. It was like, oh, he's just letting the players kind of take control and stuff. It's like, I really wonder though, like I get it, the cigars thing, but like, do we really think the Raiders have taken complete control of this team? I don't really think so. And if they have, it's not like it's like a practice squad player is out there doing some like scandalous shit. It's like Max Crosby, Devontae Adams, and Josh Jacobs, until he was hurt, have probably taken a big command in leading this team. But really, it's clear that Antonio Pierce is the head coach, and he is the leader of this team, right? And he's motivating them. He's instilling a that seems really positive to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yes, I mean, there was the Devontae Adams video today where he says, Antonio Pierce has my vote. He has the locker room's vote. And you might be onto something, because when Josh McDaniels was hired, it was like, yeah, the players have to go like, oh yeah, he's our new coach and we believe in it and all that. But deep down, do they? I don't know, And then pretty soon after that, it's like they start blowing big leads, and it's like, okay, you know. Whereas with Bazake, it was like, well, all we did was fucking win.
Mm-hmm.
And then now with Antonio Pierce, it's like that's not all they're doing, but they're doing way better, right? And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, if you're a thinking man, you're probably thinking, if they just had a good quarterback, they would win more games. If they had a difference making quarterback in this game, they would win.
Mm-hmm.
It's really that big of a difference. And I'll get to Aiden O'Connell because I don't want to shit on him. I actually think he had a great game in this one. I just think there's a difference between a good, like really good backup quarterback who's young and has inexperience, right? And he's going to make mistakes, and a dynamic difference making quarterback. Like Aiden O'Connell can have a great game and the Raiders can still lose. Whereas when you have a dynamic quarterback like a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen, a let's say Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, right? They will win games when the rest of the team does their part, you know. Whereas Aiden O'Connell, it's like he needs the defense to get turnovers and score touchdowns just to win games. You know what I mean?
Or I guess to kind of correct you, they can win games even when the rest of the team is not doing their part.
Yes, the dynamic quarterback's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you
Now,
said when the other the rest of the team does their part. But dynamic quarterbacks, they can
right.
single-handedly put the team on their back on
Yeah.
certain weeks. You're not going to
Yeah,
get that
I
out of
guess.
Aiden O'Connell.
Right. Well, I guess but my comparison was also, besides the pre-snap penalties and the this and the that, like for the most part, this was a pretty well played game on both sides. But those third and ones, the bad play calls and all that. I'm not putting the game on Aiden O'Connell. I'm really not trying to make it sound like that. It's just my whole point here is the Raiders need a dynamic quarterback. I've been saying it this entire time that we've had this podcast. They need to go draft a quarterback or trade for a quarterback who is dynamic. And that's going to be the difference eventually, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you let Patrick Graham go, you bring in a head coach with an ego who decides, I'm going to have full power and say on this roster, not the general manager, and then potentially have issues with that general manager, like, say, John Gruden did with, at first, Rich McKenzie, right? And then now you're saying Jim Harbaugh with the Niners' old general manager. It's like, what's going to happen is he's going to bring in some defensive coordinator who's going to decide, oh, half these players don't fit. Now we're going to trade Trevon Merrick. We're just going to cut this corner. We're going to let Malcolm Kuntz walk. We're going to this, that, whatever. Robert Spillane, you can let him walk. And then we start over, right? And I've been saying that all season. It's like, I don't want that to happen. And
if it were me, I would rather start over with a guy that I'm confident is going to be able to turn it around than to run it back and not know if you have enough to do enough. I think Jim Harbaugh, wherever he goes, I'm pretty sure he's going to figure it out.
Right. So this is kind of my big thought right now on Harbaugh. I'm warming up to it. I still feel in my heart that the only way that I will be ecstatic about Jim Harbaugh is if he comes in and he keeps Patrick Graham. That's the only way that I'll be ecstatic about it. Will I be happy if the Raiders hire Jim Harbaugh? I'll get excited pretty quickly. Yeah. I'll be like, damn, they got a good head coach. Let's go. Right. But the way I feel right now is like you can keep Antonio Pierce, hope that he gets better with like time management and stuff like that. But give him that quarterback and maybe a better offensive coordinator who hopefully maybe is a quarterback whisperer if we're lucky. I don't know. Draft the quarterback or trade for the quarterback, whatever, and flourish. Right. Whereas I just feel like if you go through the Jim Harbaugh cycle of, you know, we got to get rid of the coordinators. We got to probably let our GM walk because this new head coach who has the full blown ego wants full control of the team, just like John Gruden, just like Josh McDaniels. He wants his people. When he brings in his people, they decide, well, we need our players. And then you start all over. It's like you run the risk that us Raider fans are way too used to of demolishing the team.
Mm.
And then what do? They determine, oh, this team isn't that good. We got to rebuild. And then that's when Max Crosby gets traded,
I
which I
don't think
doubt they would
Harbaugh
do.
has shown that he's done that though. In the well, at least with when he came to the Niners were talented and poorly coached under Mike Singletary. Harbaugh comes in. I don't remember a ginormous shift in the roster the way that Shanahan came in and like got rid of all like everybody, for the Niners.
Right.
Harbaugh came in and he made all the players believe in themselves and they all played together as a team.
Yeah. No, like there are all sorts of positives to Harbaugh. The big things that get me are the fear that they fail and they tear everything up in the process. Everything that's promising, they tear it up in the process and then they fail. And then it's like Mark Davis looks like a fucking buffoon, which he already does, but he looks even more like a buffoon for paying another head coach more than he ever has. And then it fails again. And it's like, well, anything ever worked for the Raiders? Probably not. And the other fear is because this coach Harbaugh, like the other previous two head coaches who had all power and had the ego, butt heads with the GM, things sour, and then you have that fizzle and die crash, just like the Niners had. Like maybe the Raiders with Harbaugh within 2 years they become a AFC Championship contender. Within 3 or 4 years they become a Super Bowl contender. But then in 6 years, fizzle, die, fired, everything goes to shit again. And it's like they don't win a Super Bowl. That's what the Niners did with him. Do I want that? No. Do I think that he could win a Super Bowl? Yeah. So he's probably worth hiring, but there's a lot of risk for me. Whereas all I feel is this team is just that quarterback away. But if you come in and you decide, I got to tear this up, I got to tear up the defense, I got to tear up the defensive backs, I got to tear up the linebacking core. I've seen some teams, notably the Niners, do this in a year. The Raiders won't do it in a year. I know them. They fucking won't.
Mm-hmm. Well, the good news about Harbaugh, if you did bring him in, if you really feel like this team is a quarterback away, Harbaugh's defense was always good with the Niners, and he came into an already talented defense then. And everywhere he's gone, they've had great quarterback play. So I don't really know how to judge J.J. McCarthy on Michigan right now. But, Harbaugh calls him the best University of Michigan quarterback. But that's just part of the territory of having Harbaugh. He will make the players believe that they are the best. He will
Right.
make the quarterback. Like, he absolutely drills confidence into his players, especially the quarterbacks. And so Alex Smith his career was he was a bust before Jim Harbaugh ever came in. Alex Smith has a respectable career post Jim Harbaugh. And then Kaepernick was a second round pick out of the University of Nevada. He was kind of this like, you know, running kind of quarterback. Like maybe he was just going to be a weapon, but Harbaugh took him, under his wing, and he was, Harbaugh's project, and then becomes one of the most dynamic players in the NFL and took over playoff games like I've never seen any other player take over playoff games.
Yeah, the pistol offense was magical with Kaepernick. Yeah, I trust me. I see all the potential in the world with Harbaugh, and at the end of the day, I said this on Twitter and in a tweet, responding to somebody's comment, not on my tweet, but on somebody else's tweet. At the end of the day, all I want is the right and best thing for the Raiders, and I don't know what that is, and really, I don't think any fan truly knows what that is. And Mark Davis has some tough decisions, coming up.
He does.
He definitely does. I feel like I had one last thought on Harbaugh, but I'm free. Oh, McCarthy.
Yeah. Oh, Mike will lagged out for a second. We'll get Mike back. Let me go ahead and take these comments real quick from B Raider. B Raider, thank you again for checking out the channel. Hopefully, we can get Mike to come back in while your comments are still on the screen. But B Raider says, "Let's go Raiders! Let's get this dub against them." Horses, and then also B Raider says, "Salute." So B Raider, again, thank you for checking us out. I think we got Mike back. Mike, B Raider said, "Let's get a dub against the Broncos." You can hear me, right, Mike?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the comment. We will get to the Raiders or the Broncos game very quickly here. But my last point on Harbaugh was about McCarthy, the quarterback. He's out here saying like he's the best quarterback in the world, or at least in college football. I appreciate that he instills confidence into his players, and I like the idea of that for whatever Raiders quarterback is the Raiders quarterback. I still need time to look at all the quarterbacks, but I have a very, very educated guess that JJ McCarthy will not be top 5 on my quarterback list. So I don't want him coming into the Raiders with this preconceived notion I have to have McCarthy. And then he passes up Michael Penix Jr. or maybe a Cam Ward. Or he decides I would lose my fucking mind. Or, determines, I can just sit at the 12th overall pick and get McCarthy, my guy, who I succeeded with before, instead of trading up for Jaden Daniels. Right?
I think Harbaugh's smarter than that.
I would have to assume. But also, if he doesn't draft McCarthy, then McCarthy's got to be sitting there like, well, I guess I wasn't the best quarterback in the world. Yeah. So
it's like that son of a bitch.
Yeah, and then with our luck, the Broncos draft McCarthy in the second round. He becomes the next great Broncos quarterback, and all he ever wants to do is get revenge on Jim Harbaugh. Ooh. So, I don't. Anyways,
overall, I trust his intuition on quarterbacks. But one thing about that last tweet that I had pulled up that's pretty funny is like you said it would not work between Harbaugh and Gruden, and I could see it working, but I'm just laughing at like thinking about like Jim Harbaugh's like, all right, John, give me a play. What's the play call? And John Gruden's like, I tell you what, man, that back dive. Like, and then I could definitely see like them fighting on the headset. Like,
they would be caught fighting mid first game of the season, possibly the preseason game. And then you just have like Antonio Pierce and Rich Pizzacchia standing in the background like this, like these fucking idiots.
Yeah, like, hey, that guy with the bowl cut should have hired us. It's like, yeah, like you already know. Like that Key and Peele sketch. Never forget about that. Tuck that in, dog. Tuck that in. All right, we're ready to move on to the Raiders being eliminated from the playoffs. Mike, how are you feeling about this? Thoughts?
Yeah.
Pour one out. Pour one out for the homies.
Well, I swear that was my chair right there. We fucked up because this chair is so. Now it won't squeak, but whatever. We fucked up because I feel like all that Harbaugh talk should have been with this. You know, that was my bad. We kept going. And I had a little bit more to say about the Colts, but I okay. Let me see.
We can keep it all together.
Yeah. I guess if you can go back to the Colts thing just for a second. I apologize to any viewers. Just a few last second stats. The Raiders had 26 first downs. The Colts had 16. The Raiders were 2 for 2 on fourth down. The Colts were 1 for 1. And yet I felt like the Raiders could have gone for at least 3 other fourth down attempts. And they fucked up on a bunch of third down attempts, whatever. The Raiders outgained Indianapolis 370 to 349 yards. And that was on one less drive than the Colts. The Raiders had 74 offensive plays. Indianapolis had 53. O'Connell had 47 pass attempts. Again, passing the ball was a big emphasis in this game. And also, O'Connell was 30 for 47. Minshew only had 23 attempts in this game. 0 turnovers for either team. But Steichen's offense was more efficient. The Raiders had how do I say this? The Raiders had more time of possession than the Colts, 33 minutes to 26. And I said last week, the Raiders needed to stop Jonathan Taylor, own the time of possession, do better passing, and get turnovers. And they did all of those things. Well, they did half of those things. They didn't get a turnover, and they didn't stop Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor had a 100-yard game, at least a touchdown. I think what got them was everything I had noted earlier, paired with no turnovers in this game. So, I don't know. I'm having a hard time with Antonio Pierce right now. I guess that's my thing as far as the Raiders being eliminated. I'm having a hard time really deciding, is he the right guy? I still have a good feeling towards him. I'd like him to be better with time management. And I guess here's the thing where I can lean Harbaugh. I don't really trust Antonio Pierce and some random offensive coordinator with developing a quarterback. Whereas Harbaugh, I can trust. There are aspects to Harbaugh that I'm not going to be as trustworthy in immediately, but there is that feeling like if the Raiders had gotten Sean Payton a year or two ago, where it'd be like, well, we know he's a great coach. It's the same feeling with Harbaugh, and it's like we've always mentioned, he goes to a new program and he turns it around. It's that's undeniable. That is good. No matter what, with any coaching candidate, I'm going to have positives and negatives. But I don't know. That like I said, this is a tough decision for Mark Davis at the end of the day.
I've got it, Mike. You know who the next offensive coordinator for the Raiders is going to be?
Honestly, I have an idea.
Well, I can tell you that mine is seriously the guy that the Raiders should consider.
Go ahead.
Matt Patricia. I'm just
Thank you.
I'm kidding.
That is exactly what the Raiders need. No, actually, I I was listening to, again, the Green Light podcast. It's Chris Long's podcast, and he had his brother, Kyle Long, longtime Chicago Bear, and recently Kansas City Chief, I think a year, maybe 2 years ago. And they started talking about Eric Bieniemy and, Washington right now and, like, their coaching situation. And, like, a couple weeks ago, I was like, oh, I think Bieniemy should be their head coach because it seems like he's working with Howell pretty well. Well, now suddenly Howell's like benched, and I wouldn't be shocked if the entire coaching staff is let go because they just got new ownership, right? So basically, Kyle Long, who played for the Chiefs under Bieniemy, was very much in favor of Eric Bieniemy as a coach. And I remember when like that divorce was kind of incoming between the Chiefs and Bieniemy. Like there was the first offseason where he was looking for head coaching jobs. He didn't get one, even though it was like he met with every single team. And we all know about the Art Rooney rule, but we're gonna leave that off to the side. It's like he met with every team, and yet he somehow didn't get hired by any team. Stayed back with the Chiefs. And then the next year, it was like all these rumors about like butting heads between Mahomes and Bieniemy. And what Kyle Long said was like, no, that was never a thing. It was just that Bieniemy's that coach that will yell at you and, maybe give you a little bit of a hard time. But that's because he's the guy who's, he's the details guy. He's the guy that's like putting an emphasis on the details and like maybe accountability and stuff like that. And oh, lo and behold, this season for the Chiefs, I don't remember if this is the first or second year for Bieniemy with Washington, but the Chiefs' offense doesn't look the same this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
They look like an offense that is not, how would you say? I wouldn't call it well coached, but they're not.
They're not. Something's not clicking. There's
not clicking.
There's
They're
no
getting
chemistry
drops.
there.
It's the chemistry, but it's like, I guess well coached might be the way to put it. Like they don't look well coached. They don't look like I wouldn't call it prepared, but
they're not consistent.
They're inconsistent. They're fucking up. Whereas like with Bieniemy, it was like things were going. So I was standing there like, dude, imagine bringing in Bieniemy, who's worked with a great quarterback, looks really good with Sam Howell, and he knows the Chiefs, the division rival that you're trying to get past. So you have Pierce, Graham, Bieniemy, draft quarterback, flourish. That was my alternative
I see what
thought.
you're getting at here.
Yeah.
Skip Bieniemy and get Matt Patricia.
Yeah.
You know
what? Better yet, just John Gruden, man. Just go get John Gruden.
Yeah. Just John Gruden, third time's a charm. No, but seriously though, that is actually a pretty good idea. Like if you're gonna keep Antonio Pierce, I would absolutely I would highly consider Bieniemy to be the offensive coordinator because he does have a proven track record of working with quarterbacks. Because like you said, Sam Howell for a good chunk of the year was actually looking good. It's just the Commanders, like as a team, it wasn't there.
Yeah. Here's the counter though that I'll give to Bieniemy or any offensive like this is part of the issue for me with like Antonio Pierce in drafting a quarterback and getting an offensive coordinator. At any point, that offensive coordinator, just like Patrick Graham, could leave for a head coaching spot somewhere else. So you draft your quarterback, and in year year 2 or 3, Bieniemy leaves for a head coaching gig. Suddenly, your young quarterback is vulnerable to kind of losing a step or getting a little lost, in translation towards learning a new system and all of that. I remember Derek Carr going year after year after year with new systems on offense, and that fucked him up.
The good news is that Bieniemy didn't get hired at the top, like at the peak of his career, like coming off, the Super Bowl win with the Chiefs. Who in their right mind would hire Frank Reich over Eric Bieniemy?
Well, right now, no, not many teams,
Yeah,
but the
but the freaking
Panthers,
Panthers did it.
the
The
Panthers
Panthers.
are, yeah, the Panthers are something
Okay,
else.
who else was like a new hire last year? Shane Steichen, he's good.
Steichen, Gannon, the Texans coach, those are some defensive guys, but I
maybe
guess
there will be more vacancies in like the upcoming season or the upcoming couple seasons. But here's the thing: is if Eric Bieniemy is getting hired off the Raiders staff, that means that the Raiders will have shown some sort of success because I don't see Bieniemy getting hired after the Commanders were unsuccessful and
yeah,
after the Raiders would be unsuccessful under him. So you at least would have that, like, he would have the obligation to be good. And like, it's in his best interest if he wants a head coaching job to absolutely kill it with the Raiders. Because
yeah.
like look at the hires from this past year. Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon both came from the Eagles who went to the Super Bowl. D'Amico Ryans came from the Niners who were in the NFC Championship game.
No, yeah, yeah. Coaches usually come from winners, absolutely.
Yeah,
Like
and Frank
in
Reich came from, I don't know what they were thinking.
well, I thought he was coming from Philly, and they were doing pretty good. Or he came from Indianapolis.
He came from Indianapolis.
Yeah,
He got fired
but he
from
was
Indy.
fired from India, right? But he was a good coach. He actually looked like a good coach in Indianapolis. It was like, what the fuck was that? But I guess my whole point to what I was saying, like, yes, I agree. Like getting Bieniemy in the short term would probably be pretty good, so long as you draft the right quarterback and he's a good match for that quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he teaches him up. But the problem is the quarterback gets maybe the first year is like, oh, stumble steps, whatever. But then year two, he breaks out. And then what happens, right? They might go to the playoffs. Maybe they win the division. And maybe they win a playoff game. But then Bieniemy goes and gets a head coaching gig. And then that quarterback who still needs development is left, kind of in limbo. Oh, who's going to be my next coach? And it's just a process until they get a head coach who's offensive minded, which my point here is that's another positive towards Harbaugh. When you get Harbaugh, he's staying. So
Mm-hmm.
for the quarterback.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and move on to the topic that we tried to move on to, but came back to the Colts. So just kind of give us your quick thoughts about, being eliminated from the playoffs. Because it really looked like, for a second, like in last week's episode, you did like a full on breakdown on what it would take for the Raiders to win, and it looked like the Raiders had a realistic chance. They just had to take care of business, and they didn't.
Yeah, they had a realistic shot at it, and I did all that time and effort to go and break it down just for them to not do it first week.
Did you take a look at if any of the other things fell into place?
Yeah, I was paying attention. Like I was, on vacation. I had the games for the Texans and the Steelers and I think the maybe the I don't know who else, but I had notifications for the ESPN games, But for some reason I didn't get the notifications. I was kind of annoyed, but I would whatever. I think half of them worked out in the Raiders' favor.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, one of them not working out was the Raider game. I think the Steelers won against the Seahawks, and they needed them to lose. Not needed them to lose, but it would have been better if they lost.
Yeah.
Especially because the Ravens are sitting their starters next week. So if we had beat the Colts, the Steelers probably still win anyways and ruin it.
Yeah.
So, but I think the Bengals lost their game. I could be wrong. Whatever. But as far as the Raiders getting eliminated, I think the thing here to say that I haven't already said tonight, but we've said it quite a bit, is here it is again, another wasted season. They start off shitty. They fire their head coach. This is the same as 2 years ago in 2021 when they made the playoffs, except they don't make the playoffs, and it feels way worse, right? Now, there are some optimistic sides to this where it feels like, well, this team actually has a defense that we can rely on and a lot of players that we can build on that we didn't really expect coming into this season, like Malcolm Kuntz, Thayer Munford, Robert Spillane, right? Jack Jones. They got some guys, along with the stars, right? You have some upcoming free agents like Josh Jacobs, and that's another aspect to me with Champ Kelly is like if you let Champ Kelly go, then does the new GM just go, we're going to let all the free agents just kind of test free agency? Whereas maybe Champ Kelly's like, well, I need to re-sign Adam Butler, maybe Josh Jacobs, maybe Amik Robertson, Jermaine Illuminor, right? Maybe there's more urgency to keep. Anyways,
I think Harbaugh would keep Josh Jacobs. I think if Harbaugh came in, I think he would want to keep Josh Jacobs.
Well, at the end of the day, you still have the franchise tag, and for the running back position, that's not a bad price. It's just a matter of do you want to piss off Josh Jacobs again? But also, maybe based off of the way he played this year, Josh Jacobs might feel that the franchise tag is fair. I don't know. And maybe there was an offer on the deal last year that Jacobs is sitting there going, fuck, I should have took that deal. I don't know. But again, this offseason is going to be very interesting. A lot of things. And we'll get into them. I want to really deep dive into the free agents and everything in a couple weeks. And obviously we'll talk about the coaching decision whenever that happens. But for right now, again, wasted season. We don't have top 5 draft capital to go get the quarterback, and we are not a playoff team. We're kind of in a coach and I wouldn't call it limbo, but we're in this period where it's like we don't know what's going to happen with the coach. We don't know what's going to happen with the quarterback. Like right now, I'd say we currently have backups at both. I like O'Connell. I think he's great for the franchise. Great backup to have. Better than Darnold. Right?
Maybe.
To me, he is. I would much rather have O'Connell than Darnold because I think O'Connell can still progress. And I watched this Colts game and I'm like, dude, he's solid. It's just he's not the guy that's going to win you games. Whereas Darnold is going to lose you games. You know what I mean? Because O'Connell's not throwing passes in the past 2 weeks that are worth turnovers. He's just not throwing those right now. He's learning as he goes.
The thing with Sam Darnold is like, he'll be playing well, and then he'll just have the turnovers that absolutely like break your back.
Right.
O'Connell, I don't know. I saw the Chiefs game, on Christmas, and he didn't even complete a pass. They kept wanting to pass the ball, and they kept there was so many incomplete passes, and how many passes did they complete in the second half, or like how long did they go without completing a pass?
After the first quarter, they didn't complete one, but I think it's in part on O'Connell, but I also think it's in large part because the Chiefs' defense is that good, and they were getting pressure on him nonstop in that game, and he was doing, to a degree, what he could with that pressure in his face. Maybe he was trying to throw safer throws, but they were off target to the receivers, but also off target to the defensive backs, maybe. But I saw in this Colts game a quarterback, and the Charger game, right? A quarterback who has potential to start games later in his career and win games, right? If he continues to progress and get better and better. But he's, as I've said tonight, he's not the guy that I would build around. Hell no. I just like him as a backup.
He reminds me more of like Nick Mullins.
I'd have to really think of who he reminds me of. I would almost go as far to say, this might come off wrong, or maybe some people, Niner fans, might get upset with this. If he were a second-round pick, he would remind me of Jimmy Garoppolo, but on the Patriots. But I don't know if that makes sense. Like, he looks like a guy who has potential. He goes out there. Now, Garoppolo, when he was younger, he maybe had a little bit more of a gunslingerness to him, whereas O'Connell was more of like a game manager, you know? But if you can get O'Connell to properly game manage, he's accurate and he's got the timing in his head and he's got all those things and tangibles to do it. He just doesn't have the dynamic ability to change a game.
Mhm.
But as far as the Raiders being eliminated, like I said, it's another one of those years where it's wasted. They're going to end up, if they win this game, they're going to have like the 15th pick. Literally. That's week 1. I said that's what I don't want. It's going to happen. But I'm going to take some optimism with guys like Malcolm Kuntz, Jack Jones, Thayer Munford, Robert Spillane, and so forth, and hope for the best this offseason, because I really do believe that this offseason can change this team for the better for if they get it right for decades, or at least for a decade.
Dude, you've been calling it for so long, and honestly, this has happened so many years. We've talked about it, Mike, for so long. You're like, all right, if we're not going to make the playoffs, just please get the highest draft pick that you can. And I said it either last week or 2 weeks ago. The Raiders just need to take their medicine, and they play up to a standard where they oh my God, they might make the playoffs. And then they just lose games that keep them out of the playoffs and win games that keep them out of serious draft capital. So it's like a poverty cycle, but for like, draft picks and like, playoff positioning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you're literally just kind of stuck like in the AFC barrel.
So the cycle, like, okay, I've seen the cycle of like, they get my hopes up. It's a triangle. It's like they get my hopes up, they let me down, and I forget what the other one is. But it's like it's so much more complex, but yet it's so easy to follow. What the Raiders do,
I bet you the third thing is they get my hopes up, they let me down, they fire the coach.
Well, I think it was they start to play good again. I think that's what it is. And then your hopes get up, but then they let you down. They start to play good again. And it keeps going in a triangle, circle, whatever you want to call it. But really what it is I guess we could go off of that, right? So let's say they get my hopes up. Right now, my hopes are up. But there are changes incoming, right? Potentially. And needed, like quarterback, right? Then they let me down. And then it's rebuild the defense, redo this, rebuild that. And then once they start winning, which by winning I mean like, get to around 8 wins in a season. Oh, my hopes are up. And then John Gruden's on the Epstein list, or, whatever it is. And then Josh McDaniels, blah, blah, blah. And then hopes are down. Here we go again. Yada, yada. They don't win enough games to make the playoffs. They keep that going until they get fired, the coach. New coach comes in. They determine, I want to rebuild. I want to do this. And then they trash whatever, like, little bit of hope we had, try to turn it into picks and draft good players. They don't draft good players. Somehow they start winning enough games to, like, not get a top 10 pick. My hopes go up, and then they shit the bed and they get fired. So that's what I'm trying to prevent. I think Harbaugh can prevent that, but also, for the love of God, don't do this to me again. So
let's take some comments. So Miranda Forrester says chicken wing. Maybe an inside joke that I don't know about from Disneyland.
Yes, from Disneyland. There was I'll explain it. There was this kid. There was this kid in line behind us who just kept saying, I think it's a song, chicken wing, like just kept going. We were in line for like 40 minutes and all we heard was chicken wing.
Dude,
and then the entire day, it's like, okay, we left that line. We go to our other rides later, like 3 hours later, we saw that family again, and we are just like chicken wing, and then we kept going. And then like 3 hours later, we saw them get chicken wing. It was like, oh my god, dude.
Yeah, I know the song that you're talking about. That song's old, but there's like there's an emote on Fortnite that Pia has, and Pia always uses that emote. It's like the chicken wing emote.
Yeah.
So Pia's dad says, Mike, how do you feel about the Raiders just bringing Chucky back instead of paying 2 coaches not to coach the Raiders?
I guess I'm a little confused on the last part. What he means by instead of paying 2 coaches not to coach. Maybe what he means is
paying
McDaniels
and not paying another guy.
Mark Davis still having to pay McDaniels whatever he has left on his contract, and also theoretically Mark Davis still paying John Gruden because that was a 10-year deal. Now, as far as the second part of that, with the Raiders having to pay 2 coaches, I don't care. It doesn't affect the cap space. It only affects, I think, Mark Davis's
his wallet.
His wallet. That's up to Mark Davis. That's for him to decide, right? Now, as far as bringing back John Gruden, just that alone, I've had my time with Gruden. It wasn't the best experience. Right when he got me to that, oh, my hopes are going up. I think the season might finally be it where we might go to the playoffs. He has a scandal. He gets fired or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And then that was that. And his team got to the playoffs, but did I have faith that he was going to lead the team to the playoffs consistently or ever win a Super Bowl? Hell no. Hell no. Because he was an egotistical head coach who thought that he should run the team personnel, and he sucked at it. So no thank you. And his offense was old school. Too old school. The league has changed. John Gruden thinks that his old ways can work just like the Patriots way, thinks that they can. I don't know what Mark Davis's obsession with all of that is. I hope Jim Harbaugh has some, new cards up his sleeve if he's the guy. But yeah, no, I John Gruden is like, he literally might be the last guy on my list, just ahead of Josh McDaniels. We need change. If we're gonna not go with Antonio Pierce, change it. Don't go back to some old coach. I get the question because that is a legitimate rumor, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, oh man,
yeah,
no, John Gruden's his time's gone.
He's like last on your list, but he's kind of at the top of my list. Not at the very top, but I'd say if it isn't Antonio Pierce and it's not Jim Harbaugh, hell, why not run it back with John Gruden? Because I would love to see, hey, this might be the first time that the same coach has coached a team on 3 different time periods.
Yeah. I mean, it would be weird. It would be crazy. And I'm sure there are some Raider fans out there who might be kind of rooting for it, but I don't know. I just think from what I saw from Gruden, like the season that he got let go and everything happened to him, I was sitting there thinking to myself, God damn it, he still has 7 more years on his contract. This dude sucks. That's where my mentality was at the time. So when that thing came out, it was hilarious. And I was like, oh man, we might have made the playoffs this year, but I don't care, dude. That needed to happen. And then we followed it up with, at first, Rich Bisaccia in playoffs, but then Josh McDaniels. And again, the cycle. So they need to find the right guy.
Yeah. Also, Joel, thank you for tuning back in, says, what's good, boys? Nothing much, man. We're just we're wrapping up the stream. Yeah, you know what? Now that I see you looking, what is that profile picture? It's like Max Crosby and another player tackling. Looks like a Buccaneer.
Mahomes.
Oh yeah, probably Mahomes. Probably Mahomes.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
And I love the Crosby Raider tattoo. That shit's awesome.
It's like what's that one meme from Guardians of the Galaxy where Rocket's like, oh wow, this is nice. Yeah, we got to get this framed. Also, PS says hot dog and bologna because that's the song. It goes chicken wing, hot dog and bologna. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, like literally, but all the kid did just kept saying chicken wing. Did not ever say hot dog or bologna. It was just chicken wing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Happiest place on earth, and you're just like, it's like torture. You're in line and just chicken wing over and over.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
bet
I
you
was laughing at least.
you will never eat Buffalo Wild Wings the same ever again.
I might just start singing to myself.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the Raider Pro Bowlers, Mike. Let's
Super quick. Super quick.
yeah.
Honestly,
Do
I
they
don't
have
know if
22?
they did
Do
not
they
have
have
22. I don't even know if they had alternates. The starters that were voted on from the Raiders were Max Crosby and AJ Cole. No
Mhm.
surprises to me. I would say if you had to ask me who got snubbed from the Raiders, I think my vote would actually go to Robert Spillane. Um, I don't think Kuntz played enough on the season to like earn a Pro Bowl nod. Because of the struggles on offense, I don't think Devontae Adams really earned a Pro Bowl nod. I would say he'd be a good alternate, but I don't think he's a starter for this year's Pro Bowl, and um, definitely not Josh Jacobs this season. So, and then the only other guy I could think of maybe is like Colton Miller, but his injuries took him out of it, But he wouldn't be a starter for the Pro Bowl. He'd be an alternate for me. So
Mhm.
that's about it.
Yeah. So it's one of those Raiders seasons where it's one fantastic defensive player and then it's their punter again.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I don't know what it is with the Raiders and punters, but they know how to do that shit.
yeah, I think it's because they use them so frequently compared to all the other AFC teams that it's just like, oh, well, I've heard AJ Cole's name, how
Yeah,
many
or
times this year, and he knows
I
how to
get
draw an unnecessary roughing the kicker.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. Just whoever develops the punters at the Raiders, they're doing a good job.
Yeah, Super Bowl level, punting at the
We should just
Raiders.
line up. Honestly, make me the head coach, and I'll just line up 11 punters on the field at all times, and we'll win at least 9 games every season, like Mike Tomlin.
Or check this out. This is actually so crazy that it just might work. If the Raiders' best player, their Pro Bowl player is their punter, every time the Raiders get the ball, they should just punt it on the first play because your best players are going to give you the best chance to win.
Right. If we're lucky, we'll pin him on the one and then get a safety with Max Crosby on the next play. There's our 2 Pro Bowlers.
Don't even play offense anymore because it doesn't even seem like time of possession is even helping you guys win. Like
They
just punt it, pin it at the one, safety with Max Crosby. Boom.
they literally didn't even need to play offense against the Chiefs. So I think we're on to something.
Yeah, they beat the Chiefs by kicking 2 field goals, or was it 3?
2.
They kicked 2 field goals, and then they had 2 defensive touchdowns in 7 seconds,
Right.
and didn't complete a
But
pass after that. They might as
yeah.
well just have punted.
Yeah. I
They
mean,
would have
in
scored
the
more.
first quarter, the Chiefs had negative pass yards or yardage total. We talked about this, but I want to say the final was 20-13.
Mm-hmm.
So you take away the 2 field goals, we would have won 14-13. Pure defense.
Yeah, but check this out. If you punt every play, pin them at the one, maybe you win 60-13.
Probably not, but I'll tell you what, man.
I'll
That
tell
John
you what,
Gruden.
man. That John Gruden hits different. Let's preview the Raiders versus Broncos game because I know B Raider was talking about let's have the Raiders kill the Broncos. How are you feeling, Mike? Anything you're looking forward to in this game, or it's kind of a lost cause, sinking ship?
I think really the way I feel about this game is I said a week ago, like, I'm not going to root for the Raiders to lose again, or at least until they're eliminated from the playoffs. So, I mean, I'm rooting for them to lose, but I'll give you my pick right now. I got the Raiders winning this game because Antonio Pierce has way more than Sean Payton has to play for.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean Payton can talk all he wants about winning games and like, oh, the goal is still to win. They got eliminated last week too. And right now, I actually don't know who is technically. I think the Raiders are technically in second right now in the division. Which, I mean, that shit matters for next year because what's going to happen on the scheduling is if the Raiders end up in third place by losing this game, no matter what, whoever wins this game will be in second in the division. So whoever gets second place in the division, I think we're facing the AFC North next season, which that's a tough draw. But we also get the NFC South. But you also get the second place team from the AFC East, which will be either the fucking Bills or Dolphins. And you get the second place team from the AFC South, which will be either the Jags, Colts, or Texans. Whereas if you finish in third place, you get those third place teams to face next year, plus one NFC team.
Currently, the Broncos are in second place, but I wonder, is the tiebreaker between two teams in the same division, is it head-to-head matchups or is it division record first? Because the Raiders beat the Chiefs and they beat the Chargers once, so that's 2 division. And then who else did the Raiders beat?
I want to say the Raiders are currently 3-2 in the division because they lost to the Chargers, they lost to the Chiefs, and they also beat all 3 teams.
Yep. Okay, so they got 3 wins in the division. They lost to the Bills.
But I think head to head would overrule it. So if the Raiders beat them both times and they end up tied, the Raiders would be in second. I think the head to head overrules it because what happened like with you know how if the Raiders had won out and the Chiefs lost out, the Raiders would have won the division.
Mm-hmm.
They would have had the same record, 9-7. But what would have been the difference? Because they would have been tied 1-1 in the head to head, it wouldn't have been division. I don't think. I think it would have been against conference, or it would have been the. Yeah, I think it was against conference. I don't know. it obviously it's tricky, but it's one of those things. It's either conference or divisional wins.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was divisional wins because I know the Chiefs have lost to the Broncos and maybe the Chargers. I don't know.
I'm trying to figure out like who did they beat in their conference or like who were the teams that they beat. Period.
The Broncos.
Okay, the Broncos. That's in division.
Wait, you're saying the Raiders?
The Raiders. The Broncos are in division. They beat the Chargers. No, they lost the Chargers. I'm going in order just so I can get it right. Okay, they beat the Packers. That's an NFC team. Okay, so I think that was the team I was missing.
Week 3.
They beat the Patriots, AFC. Right? Okay, so there we go. And then they beat the Giants, NFC, Jets, AFC. They beat the Chargers, AFC. They beat the Chiefs, AFC. So that's their 7 wins. So 5 of them are against the AFC, which I have to imagine that's more than the Broncos. So if the Raiders win this game, they will face the second hardest schedule, right? The second hardest schedule
for the AFC West, probably like as of the end of season, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, for the draft, for getting a higher draft pick, and in theory, not having a harder schedule, I want the Raiders to lose.
But they're not going to.
I mean, I don't think they're going to. And the only positive for me, other than for Antonio Pierce and some players on the team, the only other positive I see for the Raiders winning this game is they're currently on a hell of a win streak against the Broncos, dating back to Oakland. As long as the Raiders have been in Las Vegas, they have not lost to the Broncos. I want to say it's either 6 or 8 wins in a row. It could be more. And I'd love to keep that going just because It's the Broncos.
Yeah, but it'll keep you down. Like, to me, just peel the Band-Aid off.
It'll keep us down, but like they can always trade up. You don't want to trade up, but also like this win won't make that big of a difference for the draft, in my opinion. Like we're basically depending on us losing and the Bears, who are facing, I think, the Packers, and the Jets, who are facing, well, the Patriots, to win their games. So the Jets, they'll probably win, although Bill Belichick in his possible last game as a Patriot, um, I don't know. It just you're the best we could do is like the ninth overall pick, I think, if my math serves me right.
Well,
So
I say it is huge. It is huge to lose this game because I think it's no question that both the Raiders and the Broncos want a quarterback.
yeah, yeah, um,
That to me is huge.
yeah, yeah, and I think it's pretty. At least to me, it's pretty clear that the Broncos are going to draft a quarterback,
Mhm.
whereas maybe the Raiders can look elsewhere. Uh, I don't know, but yeah, no, that is a big thing. But regardless, yeah, I want to lose this game.
Yeah, you should absolutely want to lose this game, but the thing is like you said, Antonio Pierce is playing for his job. Like, he wants to keep the Raider job. Mark Davis should walk into Antonio Pierce's office and it's like, look, if you want to have any chance of keeping this job, you lose that damn game on Sunday because, like, oh my God, what a setback to
Right.
lose
Well,
a potential quarterback option to the Broncos, a division rival.
yeah,
Because
we
Sean
just
Payton's
gotta.
not dumb. He knows the NFL. He knows how to play it.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we just have to remember, as far as Mark Davis goes, the Raiders' motto of "just win, baby." Like, I think at the end of the day, I think the Raiders brass is thinking to themselves like, "Oh, the draft pick doesn't really matter. Like, if we really want this guy, we can trade up for him." Yeah, but in your defense, or to agree with you here, if the Raiders earn the ninth overall pick, trading up to third overall is way easier with the ninth overall pick than it is with the 15th, right? So that's where it's like, yeah, I want to lose this game. If we win, I'll laugh about having a 10 or 9 game win streak on the Broncos, but it'll just make me that'll with my luck that'll be the game that it's like, you know, 6 years ago, however long it was, where the Raiders beat the Cardinals and that caused them to not get the first overall pick. And like nobody talks about it, but that's the difference between Nick Bosa and Cleveland Farrell, right? And that's a little bit more dramatic than this here, but still, it's like you're in need of a quarterback. You better assure yourself that you can go get your quarterback. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. Raiders, take your medicine. Raider fans, I just have to say the good news for you guys is that it's finally going to get interesting. It's really about to get really interesting in, just a couple weeks here. And, for everyone else, I'm assuming Niner fans left here, it's also about to get interesting after these next 2 weeks.
yeah, the playoffs are going to start after this upcoming weekend. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to get interesting real quick here. And as the playoffs go, coaching searches are going. So, yeah, it's getting really interesting really quick. And like you said, for Niner fans, in 2 weeks, playoffs really start for you guys, and we'll see how far you guys get. I was going to say one more thing, and then I lost it.
Here, while you think
What
about that,
were we?
you said that the Raiders kind of go by the motto of "just win, baby." Um,
Mhm.
I do have to say that the Raiders do have another motto that they should also remind themselves of. I always heard that the Raiders' motto was commitment to excellence, and winning that game on Sunday is not committing yourself to excellence.
Yeah, you're committing yourself to something scary.
Back into the
Oh,
poverty cycle. But go ahead.
yeah. This is what I was gonna say. This is gonna be my last thing. After this past week, a week, 2 weeks ago, we were saying like, oh, the Raiders could trade for Justin Fields. And we even got a comment afterwards, from a Bears fan who watched our video saying like, yeah, you guys can look elsewhere. We're keeping Justin Fields. And this past week, Bears fans were chanting, "We want Fields," which makes me think that there's a really good chance. And I was already thinking this, but now more than ever, it's like, yeah, there's a really good chance that the Bears are going to either pick Marvin Harrison Jr., which that'd be kind of sketchy for them to do, or trade the first overall pick back-to-back years, which in that case,
that would be
who's
smart.
the team? It would be smart. They would get a fucking haul again, even a bigger haul because this quarterback is more promising than Bryce Young. So who is that team that gives up, everything to get, I'm assuming, Caleb Williams?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it could be the Patriots or Washington who are sitting at picks 2 or 3, but it could also be the 9th overall pick. It could be Denver.
It's going to be Washington. Watch. Also, that comment, it was on the Raiders versus Chiefs recap, and it literally says JF1 is QB1 from my Chicago Bears. Go draft your own mobile quarterback. I was cracking up when I read that. Like, go draft your own. That.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you know what?
I was cracking up. I appreciate that guy for commenting on the video. Like, Bears. I was not expecting any Bears fans to come watch, but like we've attracted like any team that wants to come watch. Honestly, everybody's welcome except for Cowboy fans. No, I'm just playing. There is that one Cowboy fan who's like, who's come a couple times, who's pretty cool. But
we didn't even mention like Justin Fields or Bears in the title or anything. So he was just watching. I was like, oh, cool. But you know what? If you guys want to keep Justin Fields, be my guest. It seems like that's the right move for you guys to make. But when it comes to roster construction, and in 2 years you have to re-sign him to a mega deal, you're suddenly not going to be able to afford some other players, whereas maybe, hopefully, the Raiders have drafted a quarterback, the right quarterback, and he has 4 more years of a rookie contract to build around, hopefully. But
if I'm the Bears, if I know that the head, like, if the guy coming out of college is almost going to be like a sure thing, and I think he's better than Fields, you trade Fields. You don't hesitate.
Yeah. At the end of the day, they have to do their Jesus, I am tired. Due diligence. They have to do it.
Yeah, but if they absolutely believe that they can win a Super Bowl with Justin Fields, then I'm telling you, you flip the draft pick that you already flipped. They flipped the number 1 pick and got another number 1 pick that they can potentially flip again.
They can flip and again. Oh my god!
Watch them get the number 1 overall pick the next year, and then the Bears just become this super team. That would be nuts.
Yeah, that would be like the next great draft trade story since, like, what was it, Herschel Walker?
Yeah.
Or whatever, where like a team or what was his name from NFL Street on the Dolphins? The running back.
Is it I'm forgetting his name. I know exactly who you're talking about. Ricky Williams.
Ricky Williams. I think the Saints just traded their entire draft for just to go get Ricky Williams. Like an entire year's draft, like for rounds 1 through 7. Like the Bears trading their first overall pick, getting another first overall pick out of that, and trading that, and potentially getting another first overall. Like, that would be such a story, dude. Oh my gosh. I almost hope it happens. I have no beef with the Bears, so
Hmm.
go right ahead.
Yeah,
Besides Khalil
that'd
Mack.
be that'd be great. They would almost be like the Oakland A's of of the NFL.
Yeah, except they have a salary cap and the A's don't.